الحمد لله نحمده سبحانه ونستعين به ونسترشده ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى من تبعهم وعمل بعملهم واستنى بسنتهم إلى يوم الدين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أما بعد. All praise and thanks and gratitude be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our Prophet and Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We seek refuge in Allah from the evils of our own selves and from the wrongs of our deeds. Whoever is guided by Allah will never go astray, and whoever goes astray can only be guided by Allah. I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah alone without partners. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is Allah's messenger, prophet and servant. I remind myself and I remind you to follow the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and to apply them to your daily lives. My dear brothers and sisters, today I want to talk about a topic that is quite important to all of us, but I think we are a little bit complacent or not doing quite what we should to address this tremendous social problem within the Muslim Ummah. So this is not a problem that is local to one city or one neighborhood or one community, but it is a problem that spans the entire Muslim Ummah. And specifically I want to talk about the orphans. The orphans, these are children whose father has died, or children whose both father and mother have died. The United Nations estimates there are about 300 million orphans in the world today. We don't know how many of those are Muslim children. We don't have, unfortunately, like many things in Muslim majority countries, we don't have statistics on how many Muslim orphans there are. We do have some statistics from Syrian refugee camps, because a lot of those camps are administered by the United Nations or by other non-government organizations, so they collect data. And in 2014, which is the last time we have data, we don't have data after 2014, but in 2014 there were approximately 70,000 Syrian orphans in refugee camps. 70,000. These are not inside Syria. These are in the camps in the countries surrounding Syria. Of those 70,000, 4,000 had no family members. No father, no mother, no aunts, no uncles, no brothers, no sisters. So these were children who had nobody. And they were displaced from their towns and their homes and had nobody. So that's just one area. And we have so many different areas in the Muslim world where there is conflict. In fact, you can name almost any place and there is some kind of conflict occurring. And we don't have statistics, but this is what we have from Syrian refugee camps. Fairly reliable numbers, and these numbers are 5 years old. So we don't know now how many, but it's definitely increased because a lot has happened between 2014 and now 2019, and it continues to happen throughout the Muslim world. So what I'm trying to do by sharing some of these numbers is that the magnitude of the problem is immense. So we're not talking about 50 kids or 100 kids here or 10 or 1. We're talking about tens of thousands, and in the Muslim world probably millions. Some Muslim relief organizations estimate there are about 100 million Muslim orphans in the Muslim world. About 100 million, that's the estimate. Of course, when you read what they say we don't have statistics from the countries, we don't have reliable data. But they do some calculations and extrapolations, and they're able to come up with a number they think is somewhat accurate. It's a lot of people. 100 million is more than the population of most countries, most Muslim countries. So it's a tremendous burden that we have to share. Okay? Don't expect someone else to come and take care of Muslim orphans. There are people who are trying to take care of Muslim orphans, but they are not Muslims, and they have ulterior motives. When you talk to people who are members of relief organizations who go out to the real world and try to actually help Muslim orphans, they will tell you that Christian missionaries are right there. They're better equipped, they have more money, they have more planning, they have more know-how, and they are there to attract Muslim orphans. And they try to attract the youngest orphans, so that from an early age, they can indoctrinate them with Christian thought and Christian theology. This is happening throughout the Muslim world. It's not one country or one area. If you talk to people who work in Muslim relief organizations, they will validate this. They will tell you this is what we see on the ground when we go there. So we have a tremendous responsibility. These Muslim orphans are our children. Let me emphasize our. It's not their children, they're our children. Okay, we cannot get rid of our obligation and our responsibility by trying to turf it to someone else. By trying to say, well, they need to take care of their own. We're all one. We're one ummah. Don't be eluded by borders and different languages and different colors of skin. And we are one people. We are the people of La ilaha illallah. It's one ummah. Don't think differently, because that's totally wrong thinking. That's not what the Quran says. So we are one people, and we are responsible for Muslim orphans. And we have fallen short. We have fallen short. If you look at most Muslim relief organizations, they only have enough funding to take care of hundreds or thousands of orphans. We have 100 million estimate, but they cannot handle 100 million. They can only handle a certain small number because they can only deal with the donations that they get. So they don't have the resources to take care of all of these orphans. Let us turn to the Quran and to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And let's see what they tell us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the word orphan in the Quran 22 times. 22 times. There are very few things in the Quran that are mentioned 22 times. Most things are mentioned 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 22 times he mentions the word orphan in the Quran, or some linguistic derivative of it. Because as you know, in the Arabic language you have verbs and nouns, but it all revolves around orphans. 22 times. Not once, not 5 times, not 10 times, 22 times. I could spend the rest of the khutbah reading to you the ayat, 22 ayat, and explaining them. And I wouldn't finish. That's how immense it is. But I am going to share with you a few of them. Before I do that, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in a short but powerful hadith, in the way he normally gives us the hadith, because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is able to encapsulate great ideas in just a few words. Most people, when they want to convey a great idea, they have to write 10 pages. to get to their idea. Or they have to give a 2-hour speech to convey their idea. But Rasulullah ﷺ, he conveys great ideas. Ideas that change the world, that change society in just one sentence. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنا وكافر اليتيم في الجنة كهاتين. That's the hadith. He said that me, he's talking about himself, me and the orphan sponsor will be in Jannah like this. And the narrator said he put his middle finger and the index finger together. He met them together. Does your middle finger ever separate from your... They're right next to each other, always. It's not that at night your index finger goes to sleep somewhere else. And they're always together, no matter where you are. That's powerful. You want to be with Rasulullah ﷺ in Al-Jannah the same way your 2 fingers are in Al-Jannah, then you sponsor an orphan. That's the message. That's the incentive. That's the motivation. That's how powerful he is. In a short, 1-sentence hadith, he conveys a great idea, a revolutionary idea, an idea that we need to live up to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, in a beautiful ayah, simple but beautiful, he gives us orders. Remember that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you an order, you have to follow it. It's not optional, it's not a suggestion, it's not a recommendation, it's an order, which means you have to do it. When he says you do this, and you do it. In this ayah I'm going to tell you, he tells us to worship him. Just to worship Allah. And then he says do not associate anyone else with Allah. This is the basic of Islam. And to be good to your parents. And to be good to your relatives. So Allah, the parents, the relatives, and right after that the orphans. Right after that, the orphans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, من بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ. Worship Allah. So this is an order. Worship Allah and do not associate anything with Him. And be good to your parents and to your relatives and to the orphans and to those in need. Very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks to us in the Quran, He doesn't beat around the bush. He tells it the way it is, straight. This is what you need to do. The orders are clear. We just have to follow them. When Rasulullah ﷺ was asked about the orphans, Allah answered. So Rasulullah ﷺ was asked, what do we do with the orphans? And Allah answered, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْيَتَامَى قُلْ إِصْلَاحٌ لَهُمْ خَيْرٌ. And they ask you about the orphans, tell them to do what is good for them. It will be better. To do what is good for the orphans, that will be better for them. So Allah gives us simple words that we understand. Do something good for the orphans. It will be better for you. Imagine, not just for the orphan, it will be better for you if you follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us about those who do not believe. Not only do they not believe, but they are defiant. They deny faith completely. They deny faith and religion and they don't believe in any of it. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them, this is what He says. من بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم. Allah asks us, He says, have you seen the one who denies faith? Now He's going to describe that person. So He's asking, have you seen the one who denies faith? He is the one who drives away the orphan. That's the description. The orphan comes and wants help, and he says, I don't have time for you. Go away. Go away. Just treats him badly. Treats him as if he's a second-class citizen. Just, I don't have time for you. Go away. He turns him away. He drives him away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran gives us another one. If you happen to be taking care of an orphan, you better be careful how you do it. Because Allah is watching. Sometimes that orphan may have inherited something from his or her father. The father died by definition. So they may have left behind some wealth or some property or some money. And now you are taking care of that orphan. You're responsible for handling that property. And you better do a good job. And you better not try to steal from the orphan or cheat the orphan out of what is rightfully theirs. Be careful, because Allah gives a warning in the Quran that He does not give for anything else. It's a severe warning to us. It's very descriptive. It's scary. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, من بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الذين يأكلون أموال اليتامى ظلما إنما يأكلون في بطونهم نارا إنما يأكلون في بطونهم نارا وسيصلون سعيرا. Those who devour the property of the orphan. He uses the word يأكلون. In Arabic that means to eat. Because once you eat something, it's gone, right? You can't bring it back. Once you eat it and you swallow it, it's gone. So you are taking something away for good. That orphan's not going to get it back. Allah warns us. Those who devour the property of the orphan unjustly are only consuming fire in their bellies. Imagine the description. Think of eating a hot piece of coal that's going to burn your insides. That's what you're doing. If you mishandle the funds or the property of an orphan, be careful. Not only will it burn you inside, you're going to be burned on the outside also. وَسَيَصْلَوْنَ سَعِيرًا. And they will be burned in the blaze. So not only are you eating fire internally, you're going to be thrown yourself on the day of resurrection into the blaze. It's a severe warning. It's a very descriptive punishment to warn us to be careful of how we handle the funds of the orphan. The greatest orphan of all time is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His father died when he was extremely young. He was cared for by his grandfather and then by his uncle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds him of this in the Quran. He says, أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. Did Allah not find you an orphan and found you a place of refuge, a place of safety, a place where you can go with your grandfather and then with your uncle? And in fact, his uncle continued to be a place of refuge for him until the uncle died. So Allah provided Rasulullah ﷺ, the orphan, with a refuge throughout his early life. It's an example for us. We have to care for our orphans. We cannot ignore them. Many of you may not know that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, a man who narrated a lot of hadith to us, he was an orphan. His dad died when he was extremely young. He was 6 years old when his father died. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he's responsible for one of the great schools of thought in Islam. He was an orphan. He was an orphan. He said, my father died when I was young, and my mother made sure I memorized the Quran by the time I was 7. SubhanAllah. Orphans feel a certain motivation inside them. They want to be better. They want to do good. They want to work hard. And that's the Imam al-Shafi'i. By the age of 7, he memorized the entire Quran. Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, his father died when he was 3 years old. 3 years old. And he said, my mother taught me the Quran. And I memorized it by the time I was 10. He memorized Quran by the age of 10. Al-Imam al-Bukhari, the man who collected hadith, and all of us know Sahih al-Bukhari, one of the great books of hadith, he was an orphan. He was an orphan. But he dedicated his life to collecting the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I want to share with you a story about the Sahaba and how they treated the orphans, how they thought of the orphans. Because it's a different mindset. You see, when we think of orphans, we think, let me pay $100 to a relief organization and they'll take care of the orphan. They'll use that money, and $100 in Syria or whatever will do a lot. So we'll just pay the money, write a check, and that's it. Out of sight, out of mind. It's not that simple. This isn't about money. Money is one part of taking care of the orphan, but there's a lot more to it. One time, there was an orphan whose father died and left him a piece of land. This is in Medina, during the time of Rasulullah. He left him a piece of land. And he had a neighbor. And the neighbor, his name was Abu Lubaba, and the orphan wanted to build a fence between the two properties. But the problem was that there was a big palm tree right there on the border of both properties. So the orphan wanted to buy the palm tree and build the fence around it. But Abu Lubaba refused to sell the palm tree. He didn't want to sell it to the orphan. And he was not only did he refuse to sell it to the orphan, but he was a little bit harsh in how he treated that orphan. How dare you ask? Who are you to ask? You don't even have a father to advocate on your behalf. You're young, and who are you to ask? He kind of treated him, belittled him. He treated him like he was a second-class citizen. So the orphan went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to see if Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam could solve the problem of this land and the palm tree. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he asked Abu Lubaba to come and to speak with him. And he asked Abu Lubaba, he said, would you be willing to donate the tree, the palm tree, to the orphan? And Abu Lubaba said, no, I don't want to. It's my tree, and it's my land, and I don't want to donate it. So Rasulullah ﷺ, to give him some motivation, he said, how about if you donate it, and I guarantee for you a similar tree in Al-Jannah. That's quite an offer. I mean, you donate a tree in this world, you get a tree in Al-Jannah. Now, if you have a tree in Al-Jannah, does that mean you're going to Al-Jannah? Yes, it does. You have something there. So it's a wonderful guarantee. He said, no, I don't. You see, he thinks like we think. No, we want now. We care about the here and now. We care about this world and what we have. Jannah, we'll deal with it later. That's how we think. We don't even want to think about it. Not now, not later. We just forget about it. It's out there. It's not something we can touch and feel with our hands today. So he said, no, I don't want to donate the tree. So one of the Sahaba, he is an Ansari. Ansari means from the people of Medina. His name is Abu Dahda. He was there watching this discussion. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, if I buy the tree from Abu Lubaba and I donate it to the orphan, will you guarantee me the same tree in Al-Jannah? This is what the Sahabi is asking. If I buy the tree and I donate it to the orphan, will you guarantee me also a tree in Al-Jannah? Rasulullah said, yes, same tree. Yes, I guarantee you the tree. Now Abu Dahda, just so you know, he had on the outskirts of Medina a big piece of land. That land had 300 palm trees in it. And they were the best palm trees in Medina. They gave the best fruits, the most expensive dates that would come out of Medina were from the land of Abu Dahda. He had 300 trees. And on that land, he had a house. And he and his wife and children lived in that house. That's where he lived. So he owned a big piece of land with 300 trees and a house. So Abu Darda looks at Abu Lubaba and he tells him, I want to buy the tree that you own. And in return for the tree, I will give you my land and everything on it. So imagine, he's going to buy one tree and he's going to pay for it with 300 trees, with a piece of land and with a house. Because that's what's on the land. He said, I'll give you. Now, Abu Lubaba couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He said, wait, you're going to buy the one tree and you're going to give me your land with the palm trees, with the house? He said, yes. Now, we already know how Abu Lubaba is thinking, right? He thinks of this world and what he's going to have now in his hand. He said, of course, a great deal. Of course I'll give you the tree. Yeah, take it. So they did the transaction and the sale occurred. And Abu Darda immediately donated the tree to the orphan. He said, the tree is yours. And he rushed home and he told his wife, I sold the house, I sold the trees, and I sold the land. She said, what did you sell it? I mean, she thought he's going to make millions. I mean, you're talking about, land with 300 trees, the best palm trees in Medina, and a big house. He's going to make millions. She said, how much did you sell it for? He said, I sold it for a tree. She kind of looked at him, are you crazy? I mean, you sold all of this for one tree? She said, I don't understand. I mean, she knows her husband's a smart guy, he wouldn't do that. She said, I don't understand. He said, it's a tree in Al-Jannah, guaranteed by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. She said to him, Rabbi Halbay, you made a lot of profit. She was so happy. She said, you made so much profit. Let's pack our things. And they left. They had to leave the house because they sold it. Subhanallah al-Azim. That's how they thought of the orphan. That's how they thought of the orphan. Not just write a check for $20. No. This guy gave up everything he owned for a tree in Al-Jannah for the sake of the orphan. Subhanallah. I want to share with you another story that happened later. This was during the Abbasi time. And this is a story that it's not a hadith or anything, it's a story that happened, but it's a real story. A woman had 2 kids, and her husband died suddenly. And before the husband died, he was working and he was making a lot of money, but he died suddenly. And she, over a few months, became very poor. Nobody was there to take care of her. So she left her town and she went to another town. And when she arrived at the other town, she didn't know anybody, so she went to the masjid with her little children, hoping to find somebody to help her. And while she was in the masjid, waiting, a man came into the masjid and prayed. So she approached that man and she said, I am a Muslim woman and I came here from another town, and my husband died and I have 2 children, 2 orphans, and I need help. I need some food, I need some clothes. The problem was that this town that she went to had Muslims and non-Muslims living there. So there were Muslims and non-Muslims. So this Muslim man who was in the masjid, he was suspicious that she was lying, that she was a non-Muslim, and that she was lying to him. So he said to her, the only way I will help you is if you prove that you are a Muslim. You have to prove to me that you are a Muslim. She said, all I can say is, La ilaha illallah, I'm a Muslim. I'm a Muslim, I came from another town. I don't know how else to prove to you. I mean, we don't carry certificates, we don't have any proof. That's what we believe, I'm a Muslim. He said, no, I won't help you, you have to prove. And he walked away. She didn't know what to do, so she left the masjid, and as she was walking with her 2 children in the street, she meets another man. Now this other man is a non-Muslim. So he looks at her, and he's kind of an older man, and he says, what are you doing here? Are you from this town? Because she looked like she was an outsider. She said, no, my husband died, I'm a widow, and I have 2 orphans. And I don't know anybody here, but I'm here because I need help. My children need food. He said, okay, come home with me, and my wife and I will help you. So she went to his house, and they fed the orphans, and they got them some clothes, and they found them a room to sleep in, and they kind of took care of them. That night, the Muslim man who refused to help this widow had a dream. He went to sleep and he had a dream. And in the dream, he saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And in the dream, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told him, look at this palace. It was a palace. So in the dream, he saw this beautiful palace, decorated, unbelievable. And he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who is this palace for? And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, this palace is for a believer. This palace is for a believer. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I am a believer. Rasulullah says to him in the dream, prove to me that you're a believer. The same way he asked the woman. He says, prove to me that you are a believer. The man said, I'm a believer. He said, you have to prove it before you can get the palace. This is a palace for a believer. And he woke up. When he woke up, he said, oh my God, I didn't take care of those orphans. And that's what I asked that woman. I need to change my ways. So he started the next morning looking for this woman and her 2 children. And he was asking around the city, has anyone seen this woman and 2 children? And they told him, yes, she's being cared for in the house of so-and-so. And that person is a non-Muslim. So he went to his house and he knocked on the door. And the man opened the door. And he said, I understand that a woman from out of town and her 2 orphans are in your home and that you are taking care of them. He said, yes. I saw her yesterday in the street and she asked me for help, so me and my wife are helping her. He said to him, I will pay you 1,000 dinar. It's a lot of money. Dinar was gold. I'll pay you 1,000 dinar, but turn them over to me. He said, no, I won't do that. I promised her that I will help her. I cannot just turn her over to someone else. I'm sorry, I don't want your 1,000 dinar. He said to the non-Muslim, you don't understand. I saw a dream. And in that dream, I saw a palace. And that palace was for a believer. But Rasulullah ﷺ hinted that it's not going to be me because of how I treated her the day before. So I want to fix that. And I want to be able to get that palace for myself. He said, what did you see exactly in the dream? He said, in the dream, Rasulullah ﷺ said, the palace is for a believer. And you have to prove to me that you're a believer. The non-Muslim, supposedly non-Muslim, looked at him and he said, I am that believer. Because last night, I accepted Islam. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. And he gets the palace. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله. الحمد لله ولي الصالحين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ, and this man was really doing some self-reflection. He was thinking about his own self. And he realized that he was kind of harsh. Some people, that's their nature. They're just harsh in general. They don't smile. Anytime you talk to them, they're upset about something. Any little thing irritates them. They treat people badly. Just kind of heavy-hearted. Their heart is just always too solid. They're always upset. So he came to Rasulullah ﷺ and he said, Ya Rasulullah, this is my nature and I want to change. I want to soften my heart. I want to soften my heart. I want to do something that will make me change my behavior. Change how I am. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam looked at him and he said, do you want truly to soften your heart? He said, yes, I do. He said to him, irham al-yatim wamsah ra'sah wa at'imhu min ta'am. Be kind to the orphan and put your hand on his head. See, it's not a matter of just money. Remember, these orphans lost their father. They want compassion. They want love. They want care. They want real, genuine care. Not just a check. Put your hand on his head and feed him from your food. Not the leftovers. Not the stuff you ate a week ago that you were about to throw away, but you say, I'll give it to the orphans. No. Feed him from your food. From what you're going to eat today, that's what you're feeding. That's Rasulullah ﷺ giving advice to this young man. And I know you're going to think, well, the orphan is in some refugee camp thousands of miles away. How am I going to push my hand on his? I understand that. I understand that. But in our families, there are orphans. Amongst our relatives, there are orphans. You need to reach out to them. Those are the ones you need to help more than anything. Reach out to the orphans in your own family. If they live in another country, at least pick up the phone and talk to them. Ask about them. Show them compassion and love through your voice. Okay, you can't put your hand on their head, but at least show them some compassion, real compassion, and it has to come from your heart. It's something that we don't do enough of, and we have a shortcoming in this area. But it's a big social problem in the Muslim world. As I told you, millions of Muslim orphans throughout the world. And relief organizations can only help so much. It depends on what resources they have. They can only help a certain number. So we have to step up to the plate as believers and play our role. Do what we can. And start with your own family. That's more important than anything else. If you have an orphan in your family, you need to start taking care of them now, today. Don't delay it. And don't say, oh, someone else in my family is dealing with it. No, it's not a one-man job. The whole family has to work on it. Everybody has to work together to help the orphans. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت بارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك وإنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تبارك ربنا وتعاليت لك الحمد على ما قضيت ولك الشكر على ما أنعمت به وأوليت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك اللهم اهدنا لصالح الأعمال لا يهدي لصالحها إلا أنت اللهم اهدنا لأحسن الأخلاق لا يهدي لأحسنها إلا أنت اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا وأصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا وأصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها مردنا اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك وبطاعتك عن معصيتك وبفضلك عن من سواك اللهم بفضلك ورحمتك أعل كلمتي الحق والدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين بفضلك ورحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. إنك يا ربنا على ما تشاء قدير وبالإجابة جدير. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.